Kumlana Bal Gemara and Daf Ayin Beis Amar Aleph Masech Yuma Yud Beis Tammuz. So we're talking about the number of strings intertwined. So we're saying how the Parechis is made up of Esiv Abba, 24. Dalid the Shisa. There were 4 different kinds of threads, and each one was made up of 6 threads. So therefore, the total of 24. Loi Dina v'Loi Daina. There's no discussion. There's nothing to negotiate. No question to ask me. It's clear of Ayin Beis Amar Aleph. Chayshin ve'Eifai, 7 lines on top. Chayshin and the Eifai, they were made up of Esim Shmeina, a total of 28 strings. No, and how do you know that? See if it says, well, Sisa Chayshin Mishpad, how should you make the Chayshin Mishpad? You should make it Maaseh Chayshin. You should make it like a designer makes it, Kemaise Eifai, just like the Eifai Tasenu, you should make it. And that is made up of Zav, gold, Chelis, Agaman, Talashani, Veshesh. There's 5 different kinds. There's 4 different kinds standard, and then we also added gold. So we say as follows. So how do you get to 28? Arba the Shisa. There's 4 different strings, Tchelis and Arma to Lashani Veshesh. Each one is intertwined of 6, that's 24. Esim Abba and Zav, the gold is only 4 strands. Arba is 4. Yes, Hachako Esim V'Tamnaya is 28. So how do you know? Maybe gold also was made up of 6 strings, like everything else was made up. It says a pasuk. It says the kitzes, they split in half. Psilim, the threads in plural. Psilim is a minimum of 2 threads, and you split them in half, which means I want that you have 4. So the kitzes psilim, psil is singular, psilim is plural, and you kitzes, you split them in half. Hadekandal, you have a total of 4. So 4 plus 24 is 28. That's how we know it's 28 strings. Avashi says on Makro, it says in pasuk that you should take this gold and put it betoichat lasis to make it betoichat cheles, inside the cheles, with betoichat gaman, inside that gaman. You should mix it together with the rest. So therefore, we're going to explain, because gold is mixed with the rest, we're going to explain why the gold cannot be 6 strings. We're talking about how much our strings are intertwined. So everything else has 6, but gold has 4. So that's why by the Chayshmish, we know it's a total of 28 because of the 4 standard ones, and plus the gold, which is another 4, it makes it 28. And what's the reason why it can't be 6 by gold? Yeah, because it says in the pasuk you should make it betoichat cheles, amongst the cheles, inside that garment. That means it has to mix with each one of these 4 different kinds. So now the question is, hey Chinab, what should we do? Navid arba the trey. Navid arba the trey. Have a look at now. If we're going to make what? That we're going to make it all when the gold mixes each one of these 4 strings. Each should be 2 strings of gold with each one. It'll be a total of 8. Navi tray, but today the chat we make 2 strings made up of 2, so therefore you have 4, and 2 strings made up of 1, so you're going to have 6. You say you want gold to be equal to everything else made up of 6 threads. Since the Torah says that you take the gold and mix it with each one of these 4 different kinds of threads, different color threads. So if you're going to make 2 of them should be 2, and 2 of them should be 1. That's how you got 6. It's not even. And yet it says in the pasuk, so you should make them that they should all be identical. That they should all be identical, and because it says they should all be identical, therefore it's impossible. That's why we say the total is only 4. It's only 1 string of gold that joins each one of these different colors, so it makes up 4. That's how you get a total of 28 threads, 28 strings. Talking about the Chayshin and the Eifai and the Weiter, the Gemara continues. The word Vasisa says Vasisa Chayshin Mishpat. Master Chayshin can Master Eifai. So Vasisa means that everything you do there should be the same. If somebody rips the big day kuhuna, the clothes of kind deliberately, like he gets malchus. He gets malchus. You gotta be very careful. Why? The pasuk, you make a little a hem at the top over here on the collar. So it's a why. It says and lo yikoreya, shouldn't rip. Master of Yaakov, who said that is an aveda. Maybe the Torah explained to you why I want you to build a little hem over here on top rim. But the Mahogam Rahman Navi they suffer kihecha the lo yikor. In other words, to prevent it ripping. But who says an aveda? So you better know. Miksi doesn't say shaloy yikor in order you shouldn't rip. It says don't rip. Sounds like it's separate lav altogether. Separate lav, yeah. The Kiva asked a question made of Tzarechim. So the whole Raya the Gemara is Laveda says lo yikore rather sheloy. So why by Shlomo Melech when it says lo yarbe lo susim, the pasuk says lo yarbe lo susim, and it says lo yosel liboy, we say it's not a separate aveda lo yosel liboy. We say that the trade is explaining why lo yarbe lo nashim. You shouldn't have more women. In order that you shouldn't lead you astray. But following our Gemara learns, if it doesn't say shet, but it just says loy, it's a separate law. What's the difference? Rabbi Loza said also, if somebody dislodges the chayshin from on top of the ephod, and also somebody removes badi other in the poles of the other, and like you get malchus.
Even though it's a physical impossibility.
It says in the pasuk, you can't do the physical impossibility because how do you put it in the first place? Remember, it says lo yizach. That's something ablicha tichin around the Mishnah. Let's see this second. It says lo yizach. You should move the chayshin from the ephod, and says v'lo yisuru. You place these poles inside the rings of the aron, and don't move them from there. So it's an aveda. Maybe Dilma Kikam Rachmano, maybe all the traders try and tell you, make it tight. In order, make it tight so that doesn't move, that the face doesn't move from the ephod, and make it tight so that the poles don't get removed. Says the Gemara, Miksif Shella Yiza. Does it say Shella Yisuru? It's telling you to avoid something, it's giving you a lot. So therefore, you're not allowed to remove the poles from the other. But he asked the question. See, even one pasuk it says, that it should be inside these rings, should be the badim, you should remove it. Sounds like you should move them at all. See, yeah, there's another pasuk. It says you should bring the badim with the rings. So it sounds like you can take it in and out, but I want it to be with the poles in. Now everyone asks, Rashi actually doesn't bring this pasuk, and this pasuk talking about the mizbeach. So Rashi brings another pasuk. His pasuk is v'haveses habadim b'tabois. Taisus goes here to explain why we bring the pasuk of mizbeach to prove the pasuk about the ot. Alachayda hakeitzan. How can it be? One pasuk sounds like it's saying, that they don't move at all, and another pasuk says, v'havesa. Make sure that you when you put it in, you bring it in. That means they come in, they come out. Says the Gemara hakeitzan. Mispartin, they do move around. The poles move around. The Einon Nishmat, you don't take them out. So Rashi explains that the two ends of the poles were thicker and there were no nests. Rashi says, squeeze them into the rings. But the middle was very narrow, so therefore the ring can move, the poles can move back and forth. But they would, exactly, unless you pull it, yank it out. But don't do that. Yeah. So they're moving around, about. But don't take them out. Okay. Okay, move around, but they don't take them out. They should be inside the ring. Should move make sure that move with bottom means that the bottom themselves move around within the tabais. They could move around within the tabais, so don't dislodge them from the tabais. Evil with bad of Yochli and if you just said a pasuk who was bad, I would have thought, you could pull them out altogether. With Tabas Aron, your bandage always remained in the Tabas Aron. Okay, so Mispar can move about, but don't take them out. Might have seen the pasuk Atse Shittim Oimdim. That it says in the pasuk the Atse Shittim should be standing upright. What do you mean that these planks should be standing upright? That they should be standing upright exactly the way they grow. We use this very drasha in Sukkah for the lulav that you should and the esrog that you have to hold them the way they grow. Famous question asked.
That means a vertical, not so you're not going to make a series of horizontal planks like that. They have to be vertical.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the point is, it does it also mean that you have to note which is the top of the wood when you work the wood.
It actually says the way that's all they can tell.
They had simon. They put on them which board went next to which one. I was base. Yeah, no, it's the top of the bottom. Of course not.
The Shainim ask in Sukkah, the Sregim, the tree actually grow the opposite way that we do. So we're saying that the Lawson, so we should have actually the pitum facing downwards. They say it's the weight of the or the weight of the fruit that's carrying it down, the gravity. But the famous question of Allah Khanet, He was asked. A group of Edenists went to Brazil, and they asked that in Brazil it grows the opposite of the way it grows in the northern hemisphere. So should we turn it upside down to the other side of the world? Should we turn it up, the way we should do exactly the opposite, so it will be like up there? And yeah, the fact that he addresses it, they asked him, he addresses it, and he answered that it has to be relative to where it is. But the question there was different. The question was, we imported them from Egypt, or we imported them from Italy, Italian Israel. So their Dedalosan is up right there on the other side of the world. What should they do? That was their question. And
That's really, how do you know which is really bottom of the grade?
what do you mean? It's it.
Alps is relative.
Oh, maybe if you hold sideways, if you're in the middle of the.
They say that north is the top and south.
No, they're saying that it grew in Italy and we're the opposite side of the world. So should we then turn it around? Because this essay grew not like the glass is up there.
How do you know when it grows into which stuff is
It's irrelevant, but it's when you grow the way it grew in Italy, whatever way it grew in Italy. And basically, the answer is relative to how it grown in your place, which way would have grown, and that's how you
saying why we think it's the top.
It's irrelevant which is the top. It's irrelevant which is the top to bottom, but that's where it grew, and that's the
Up there is up to.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. Call the world top bottom. The word called Chatzik Kadra Tachti.
That means the Western Hemisphere.
That's
True, yeah. But it depends. You can take it both ways. Okay, come on, right. We learned Imdim Shema Midin at Sepoy, and you know what Imdim means, that the wood they used to coat it with gold. It wasn't that they completely coated it with gold. They had plates of gold, and they used nails to knock them in. So therefore, the wood held up the gold. Or actually, another shot that that the wood never became wormy and rot. Wood rots over time. It never happened that it rotted and that the golden plate starts to fall down. It always remains fresh. Says the Gemara. The shot is oimdi. What do you mean? That atzei shitim oimdi shema tema. You might say avad. After this Mishkan was over and they buried it, so when they hid it, Shemini would say, Avad Sivran, a bottle Sikuya, that the whole idea behind it is lost, bottle Sikuya, and our hopes are gone, have vanished, have disappeared because there's no, it's gone. Tamalayman, Oimdim, Shaimdim, La'olam, Mishkan's always there somewhere, wherever it is, it's always there. It says in Pasik that the coin wears big day hasrod to serve the Shemitah. What in the world is big day hasrod? What does srod mean? It has all kinds of types. What does srod mean? The srod is about Kodesh. So he says, yes, even Molay big day kahuna, not for the big day kahuna, which the Kohen word allowed them to bring kabbanas and give me a kapara on behalf of the Eden. Loinishtayim misainayin sheyisrael sodi the polis. That means the remnant. The Chas Hashem, the Gemara ever talks about the Eden, he uses that expression. If not for big day kahuna, then loinishtayim misainayin sheyisrael there would be nothing left, no remnants left of the Bnei Yisrael. So that's what big day kahuna called sarit, that they make sure we have something left. Yeah. That's what the way that Shimon trying to be learned. But God and they took it off the weaving, but the press, whatever it was, the loom. When they took it off, they took it off whole. It wasn't in pieces, and then they had to sew it together like you normally make clothing. The entire clothing was ready, and they just pulled it off, and there's a little bit left on it. But when they took off, you can just put it on straight away. And they leave a little bit behind on that loom. Maihi, what do you mean they leave a little bit behind? What do they leave behind? So there's one part that wasn't like woven together with the big dekuna. What is that? There was needlework done as well, and that was separate. Ready to get more mace and the big dekuna. The big dekuna, there's no needlework done, there's no sewing done. Ela Maisa Oidig, all done was weaving. It says Maase Oidig, says that everything was done with Maase Oidig, was weaving. Their arms or the handle. The Tanya we learned was the handle was made separately and then they stitched it on. The Tanya we learned, sorry, sleeve. Yeah, Beis Yad. That was woven separately, but it vekis in my beged, and then it was attached later on to the beged. The magasa piece of the yad, it was so long it reached all the way to the palm of the hand with fingers bent. Sholish Aroinis also Betzal. Say differently. He said Saul made 3 Aroinis. Having more Shkolim with Machlekes, the Aron Motion on Betzal, which is the one that was the base of Migdal, which is the one that went to war. and then so on. There were 3 arenas that Betzalel made. We'll do like Rashi. And so the middle one was shel 8, made out of wood. Right? How tall was that Tisha? That was 9 tfachim high. The middle box was 9 tfachim high. Pnimi, the inner box, was shel zav, was made out of gold. It was 8 tfachim high.
Does that mean that the wood was 1 tefach thick? Or
it says so we're learning that there were 3 boxes. It wasn't one box, which we had one day in Shkolim said that, and it was just painted inside and outside gold, or gold plated, inside and outside. No, it was 3 separate boxes. That means there was a box inside that was wood, that was gold, and the box outside was gold, and the middle box was wood. And okay, so go to this. So the main box, the middle box was wood. It was 9 tfachim high on the outside, and inside, well, the cavity inside was 8 tfachim. The base of that box was a tefach thick, so the inner cavity was 8 tfachim, and the outside was 9. Pnimi shel zav, the inner one was made out of gold. Was shmeina, was 8 tfachim high, and what do you call it? And so it completely filled. It was 8 tfachim high, so it completely filled the cavity of the inside. The inside cavity was only 8 tfachim, even though it was 9 tfachim. It was like everything. And the chitzah, the outer one, was the asara, was 10 tfachim high, umashu, and a little bit 9 because that middle box was 9 tfachim high, and the mashu, what do you call it? The mashu was on the bottom, a little bit of the base. The base was very thin, gold was much thinner, and the tefach on top was to cover the kapoides. In other words, the kapoides sat on the wooden box.
lip on the top?
Yeah, tefach high, completely surrounded it. Now, all that they're trying to say, so the Rashi, the way he learned something about it here, it means the angels going to super that that the Abishah or the Abishah never comes down below 10 tfachim because the Abishah was above the Aron. The Aron was Tisha, and the Kapoides was 10. The way Rashi is learning here is the Aron itself was 10, because the outer box was 10 tfachim high. Nothing to do with the Kapoides. They all have different shots. I made time to hold them shots. When I look, looking to you, it's hard for me to read two small words, so you guys have to read yourself. Says the Gemara about Tanya, we learned. The Braisa, so you're telling me it's 10 in a mashu, 10 bit because you have one tefach on top of the kapoides, and a mashu is the base. But with another Braisa, achad also mashu is 11 and mashu is an extra tefach. What's that all about? Like kasha, hokamandom yesh bava tefach. The base of the gold was the tefach, and hokamandom ain't bava tefach. The base will not have a tefach. My mashu. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we know what this mashu is, but according to his mashu is the base. But according to this brayse here, that the base itself was a tefach. What's the mashu? Where was this mashu? It wasn't on the bottom. You already had a tefach thick base. Must have been a mashu on top. But you already had 10 tefachim to cover the wooden box and the kapoid and the kapoid. So what was the extra mashu? My mashu is a crown. I mean, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there was no crown. Got 3 crowns. The crown of the Mizbeach, Vishal Oren. Rabbi Yechon says with 3 crowns. Vishal Mizbeach, Vishal Oren, and Vishal Shulchan. Each one of them had a zezov. Shal Mizbeach, the crown of the Mizbeach, that's Koyanim, Zocha Aaron Bezoichev, and Naphtali took it. Shel Shulchan, the crown of the Shulchan. Who is that? Zocha David, that's David Melech Malchus. He took it. Shel Aaron, who took the crown of the famous word? Who took the crown of the Aaron? Adayin Munachu. The crown of the Aaron is open to anybody. If you want to become a Talmid Chacham, it's open to anybody. If you want to take it, Yova V'Yika. Come and take the crown. Because it's open to accessible to everybody. Maybe it's less choshev, less significant than the crown of Mizbeach, the crown of Shulchan. I make kings. The Aron is the highest level. This is very similar to the Mishnah period of the Shleishik Sodomim. Kesed Teda, Kesed Malchus, and Kesed Gudel. It's exactly the same thing. In fact, it's interesting that that Mishnah is based on this. The question is why the Mishnah uses the word Kesed and here we use Zeh, because that's the pasuk. The pasuk calls it Zeh Zav. Anyway, Rabbi Yechon has a question. See if it says Zay, it's written Zor without a Yud, as if it means a stranger. The Korean Zay, we read it with a Yud as if it says crown. Because again, Zocha, Nasla Zay, if you Zocha, it becomes a crown. Loi Zocha, if you are not Zocha, then is Zorheim Menu. And the whole thing is strange to you, you don't become it. You know, that you forget the whole Torah, it won't become part of you. That's a question. It says one pasuk, but see the Choron 8. You make yourself a Choron 8. No, you should do it. Moshe Rabbeinu, the angel gave instruction. You go ahead and build yourself an Oren. And they did it. Aaron not say shit. We learn an important thing. Tamil Chacham. That everyone has to make a malacha. But who should make sure? Moshe Rabbeinu was told to do it also, but who did it? The tzibur did it for him. So Talmid Chacham, the Bnei Yireh have a mitzvah to do his malacha, right? So even though Moshe Rabbeinu was told to do it, everyone took it upon themselves. It says inside and outside you should coat it with gold. That it doesn't have Yiddish Shemaim. Though his inside is not like his outside. Any Talmid Chacham that's inside is not like his outside is not a Talmid Chacham. Rabbi says we came not only is not a Talmid Chacham, Nikra is worse. You're learning Torah and you don't behave, you don't have Yiddish Shemaim, it's worse. Nikra is called like Nisav, like an abomination. It says the pasuk Av Kinisa, even though he's like foolish or worse, he's behaving the wrong way. The person drinks a water Torah, Avla, it turns into becoming a terrible thing for him. Why is he buying things beyond seal? Or why does the guy have money to buy this and hand the fool? He wants to buy Chachma, wants to learn Torah, and he has no heart, no Yiddish Shemayim. Woe is to these people who learn Torah, and we'll call them a sign of a Talmid Chacham. And they have no Yiddish Shemayim. Machir is Abiyana is a famous word. Chaval is a pity. The less late darta that have no courtyard, and yivatala dat David. In other words, Torah is merely an entrance to the courtyard. The courtyard is Yiddish Shemayim. Torah is the entrance. Yeah, interesting. Without Rashi, that is the chutzner, right? Without Rashi, you say that is the house. Dira is a house, and the door, the Torah is a door to the house, and the house is Yiddish Shemayim. For whatever reason, Rashi learns it's merely the chutzner. So what's the house then? A chutzner without a house is nothing. It must be something else. Maybe Ava, because the doorway is Torah, the courtyard is Yida, and what's next? What's the house? Don't know. Although the Rabbanon, when he was giving them a share, he said to them, I asked you a personal favor. Like don't yash two Gehennims. If they heard of it in Torah, right? So you have no hagishmak in Haza. You have no time to learn, to play around and have fun because you learn Torah all day. But if you are going to learn Torah, Leila Shem Shemayim, no Yiddish Shemayim, so you lost this world, but you're not going to get Gan Eden either. You're going to go to other places. Zish das and Nish das. That's right. You robbed us from hagishmak. So you have two Gehennims. Or others say the two Gehennims are in this world itself, because you're going to get punished for your learning. Not only you didn't have a good time in this world, you're going to get punished for your learning. The Rishonim already asked here, and Taisa already asked, we had in Psachim and other places. There it says, there it says, it's a good thing to learn. Even Loy Lishma. Here we're making, so they're saying there's different kinds of Loy Lishma. Depends if you're learning, you just don't have no right kavanas. You want people to be covered. That's one thing. That's good. The other than here, you're learning to find to be makanta, to see why the Torah doesn't. I heard yesterday someone sent me a thing from a conservative reform, or girls having a bas mitzvah, so she's making the brachas. So everything is feminine. The Davish is feminine and all that. So that's all right. But they changed. Ashabacha bono mikola amim. They changed Ashabacha bono im kola amim. Shabacha bono im kola amim. No, not at all. That's exactly what they're saying. Well, you ever heard that before? Shabacha bono im kola amim. That's the concept. That's learning the concept, taking the whatever it is.
That's
That's worse than everything else.
That's talking about Pnei Melech Ba'ashpa.
There's no melech. They don't believe in the melech.
So why make a bracha?
There are kids amazing in Shmonesa. The Reformed kids amazing.
What they believe in is amazing.
No, they changed the whole thing. The Chayyim Skulam or something.
So, yeah, but the chosen people are the chosen world. Anyway, that's what it means here, the concept. Anyway, let's continue. Some strange word, some. When it's just some he placed. If you were Zeiche, it's some, it's a good medicine. Exactly. Some is some, poison, medicine, poison. It comes poison. I know what Rabbi says. The umela, and if you're a tradesman, you know what you're doing. Some of the chayah, the low umela, if you're not used to it, and everything else, and some of the moisa. Not sure exactly what Rabbi is adding to what we already just learned. Then what about one part says the kude havaya yisharim misamchilei, but the Abish's mitzvahs and Torah makes us happy, and that's why on Tisha B'av I learn Torah. You have to learn the Mishnah Berurah and Bir Halacha on Hilchot Tisha B'av, not learning Torah, not learning Torah on Tisha B'av and Tisha B'av. Especially if it falls on Shabbat. Uksiv it says like this here. Uksiv it says. You know about Nidcha. I'm not talking about Nidcha. Even on Nidcha. In fact, the Shabbos. He brings from Maimon Mordechai, very interesting thing. See if it says Imres Hashem Tzrufa. The Abe is the word Tzrufa. Tzrufa is when you melt down and you remove all the alloys and everything else, which boils you down. So, yeah, but here Tzrufa, where you're learning as if it's like a punishment. Yeah.
It's crystal, it's clear.
I know, but that's correct. Okay. Imres and Tzrufa, which sounds like the Abish is punishing you. It's not Mesamech at all. So Zacha Mesam Chasa, Loizav Tzerfasa, you'll melt you. Shlaka Megufnikon after. What does it mean another passage for? Zacha Tzerfasa L'chai, melt you down for take out all the bad things and you live on. Loizav Tzerfasa L'misa. Yiras Hashem Teheda, I made this lot. Fear Hashem Teheda, you stand here forever. Amar China, that Loim Betayda Betara, if you Teheda Betara, Mahi, what's considered Teheda Betara? Noi say Isha Achakach Loim Betayda. First he gets married, so he takes away all of his bad machshavas, and then he learns Torah. Actually, if you remember the learning the Markedushin, the Falam of the base in the bottom, at one place it says Chaim al Savara. How can you learn Torah with Chaim al Savara? One place says you should get married first, other place you should have to learn Torah first. So he says Holon v'Holahu, and Hamachik Rashi Taisus, which is the one which is Lahu. But Bubble versus Eretz Yisrael. So sometimes it's better to get married first. Sometimes it's better not to get married first to learn. Before you have the oil parnasa. So you write that ages have I in money. It's going to give testimony by those who learn it. In the future, it's going to say, some say, the Torah itself is going to get up and say, you learned this, you learned the Gemara, you learned Rambam, you learned the Chassidus, whatever it is. The Torah is going to get up and testify on your behalf. That's how they want to learn Pshat Rashi. One pasuk says that it's the work of a roikim, which was somebody who embroiders. And one place, Ma'aseh Choshev, somebody who is the architect, the designer. So, so first they would make a little pattern, some kind of an outline, to make an outline, and then they would stand there and embroider that outline. Roikim is Ma'aseh Mach. Reikim is considered Maisa Machas needlework with the parts of Echad. And Choshev is Maisa Eira, weaving. The Reshnei parts of this. But actually, it's very simple. That when you sew, then the same pictures on both sides of whatever the material is, because it's not so thick. It goes through. When you weave, it's much thicker. So they would have two different patterns. On the front, they would have a picture of an eagle. On the back, they would have a picture of a lion. They had pictures of different animals. Then we hadn't tasted before that. From here, you learn how to let pictures and all that kind of stuff. And then we said you have to wear all 8 clothes before you can ask for Tummy. Then the Mishnah said who you can ask on behalf of Bez and so on. So the Gemara, and the 8 clothes that a Kohen Gadol wears, Meshuach, Mulchama, Mishamish Behen. There were different kinds of Kohen, right? There was a Kohen that was a Kohen Gadol. Then there was the kohen that were filled in on Yom Kippur. Yeah, kohen gadol sha'ava, and then kohen mashur sha'ava, and then we'll also have later the kohen gadol that is not called that was not a mashua, but it's a kohen gadol. A kohen gadol shmeina begadim, the second base of Migdash after Yeshio hid the oil, so they were just a kohen gadol very close. And then you have the kohen mashur mechama. The question is, what is his status? The kohen mashur mechama. He wore 8 clothes when he got there and made a declaration. What did he do the rest of his life? How many wars did they have? So what happened there? It says big. So it says here the Mashur Mechama also has to wear the full set of clothes like the Kohen Gadol. It says the pasuk big the Hakodesh Asher Aaron, the clothes of that Aaron wears Yil the bon of Achra should be for his children afterwards. Lemi Sheba Bigdula Achra, for those that have Gedula, anyone who's a Gadol, example Mashur Mechama is also a Gadol, has to wear these clothes. So Rashi says the word achrav is extra. What do you mean? Say lebanav. What do you mean achrav? To tell you that anyone that's in the position of gedula has to wear these clothes. Rashi says an interesting thing here, which the Mepharshim trying to understand. But I think Rashi saying it. If you look at Rashi yil lebanav achrav, which is in the left-hand column, like right in the middle of the page, first one is leivish ches begadim. I don't remember them bringing Rashi down. You know, the whole when they have the whole discussion, if Rabbanos and Tater and all that is a yashim to your children. Here he says, big Machlek is there. Yiu lebanav achrav, says Rashi. Hi achrav koi seidu. It's an extra word. Achrav could just say lebanav. The midrash but kol gedulas noiges bezari achrav. Clear. Kol gedulas, not just a dinner kahuna, but any position of gedula. Rabbanos is something that's a yashim. And then he said, which this part here, they have a little problem there. What's the flow? How do you get from children to Mashur Muhammad? But Rashi clearly says over here, just notice a llama there.
Isn't he saying that the
Ayin Ashash?
this
The Ashash, I think, asked what's the connection to Rashi?
this counts as a gedula? This Mashur Muhammad. You might think
No,
it's a one-off thing.
That's not the point. The point is we say that certain things are not Yerusha. Rashi clearly says, Kol Gedula is negative Zayach. Everything is Yerusha.
Yeah, but I think here the last words is just defining that Mashur Muhammad comes in the category of gedula.
But it's not Zarai. So what's the connection to Zarai? That's the problem.
No, so once he's being a Mishloach Muhammad, that goes into
That we'll see later in a minute. Right now we're talking about the how do you know the Mashur Muhammad himself has to wear the Shmei Begadim? Because we're saying that Kol Gedul is Shmei Begadim, but Rashi's going down the track of Zarai. Right? And the portion we're talking about is Kol Gedulas need 8 Begadim. Rashi talks about Zarai. Kol Gedul is no good Zarai Acharav, and then he goes.
Because is not allowed to wear it
He does.
here, he goes outside.
Can he wear it in the basement? That's a shame.
Yeah, we'll see in a minute. Let's go. People invite most of it, but I'm look Kadi, and Kadi is not the name of a person. Or Kadi means it has a word. Yochol Yehei B'noi Shal Mashur Muhammad Shatat Kadesh Moshe Kohen Gadol Shatat. We would have thought that also it's hereditary. It passes down. It says a pasuk Shivas Yamim Yilbashim